Sometimes in life, something happens that really shakes you. It feels like everything falls apart. In those moments, how we react matters. Do we fall apart too, or do we find a way to move forward? That's the question I'm trying to explore in this video. Today, I want to share some thoughts on a book that deeply changed the way I understand trauma and recovery. It's called The End of Trauma by George Bonanno. This isn't your typical self-help book, and it certainly doesn't offer empty advice like just stay positive. Instead, it's grounded in decades of scientific research and offers an honest, evidence-based look at how people respond to painful experiences and how many of us are actually more resilient than we think, often healing faster than expected. Rather than only summarizing and analyzing the book, I want to blend its insights with ideas from other scientific publications I've come across in the literature, exploring how trauma, stress, and recovery are understood today, and how we can better cope with stress in real life. This book is about what happens after something difficult happens in your life. It could be losing someone you love, a serious accident, or something else that really hurts you emotionally. We often hear that these kinds of experiences leave deep, lasting damage. But what surprised me is that the book shows this is not always true. In fact, some people can actually recover, and they don't necessarily need years of healing. Instead, maybe the way people react after a painful event can make a huge difference. What I found interesting is that the author doesn't focus only on the pain. He focuses on the decisions people make. For example, do they stay active in their lives? Do they try to take small steps forward, even if it's hard? Do they believe they still have some control over their situation, or do they feel totally helpless? These small things matter a lot. I think one big idea that we can get from the book is the difference between resilience and flexibility. These words sound similar, but they're not the same. Resilience is when you can take the pressure. You bend, but you don't break. Flexibility is when you can adjust to the situation, like changing your approach depending on what's happening. It's like in martial arts. Sometimes you block, sometimes you dodge, sometimes you strike. You don't use the same move for every situation. That's what flexibility means in life too. I really connected with this. In engineering, we talk a lot about systems being strong, able to take shocks. But in life, being strong doesn't always mean holding still. Sometimes strength means being able to shift, change direction, and try something new. Reading this book made me think a lot about my own life. I've had hard times, periods when I felt confused, lost, or deeply sad, and the depression episodes. And sometimes I found myself using words like trauma without really knowing what they meant. To be honest, I still think the word trauma is confusing. What's the difference between trauma, stress, anxiety, or depression? For people who don't study psychology, it can be really hard to understand. Having access to amazing therapists is not clearly possible for everyone. Hence, we all need to know what these terms mean if we want to face them properly in our own life. And I also feel that the word trauma is being used too much. These days, people call everything trauma, even things that are just part of normal life struggles. I think we need to be careful. Yes, some experiences are deeply painful, but not every difficult moment is a trauma that controls your life forever. And even if something truly was trauma, the bigger question is, what do you do now? How do you move forward? That brings me to one of the most valuable lessons I took from this book and from similar works in the literature. It's the idea of stress hardiness. In simple terms, it means the ability to cope with stress in a healthy way. According to various sources, there are three main ways to build this kind of resilience. First is commitment, staying connected to your goals and responsibilities even during tough times. Second is control, believing that you still have the power to respond and make choices even if you can't change everything. Third is challenge, seeing hard situations not as a punishment, but as something that might help you grow. These three ideas really helped me. For example, when I feel overwhelmed, I try to stay committed to simple routines, waking up early, reading, exercising, talking to a friend. Even when life feels out of control, I remind myself there's always something I can control, like how I spend the next hour. And instead of saying, why is this happening to me? I try to say, okay, this is hard, but maybe I'll learn something from it. Another important point from the book is this: healing doesn't always mean going back to the way you were before. Sometimes it means building a new version of yourself, stronger, wiser, even if you carry some scars. And that's okay. Personally, I don't like when people say, just stay positive or everything happens for a reason. Life is not always fair. Bad things happen even when we don't deserve them. But what we can do is try to play the best game with the cards you have. Even if your situation is not great, you can still make good choices, small steps, and bring meaning to your days. So, who is this book for? If you're dealing with trauma or deep stress, I really recommend to talk to a professional, someone trained to help. I am not offering any replacement for expert advice, but once you have a basic understanding of the topic, whether through therapy, reading, or personal reflection, the end of trauma can offer something special. It doesn't give quick fixes, but it helps you think differently about pain, healing, and what strength really means. It's a book that makes more sense the more you know and the more you've lived. If anything I said here made sense to you or made you curious, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you want a follow-up video where I go deeper into the stories and science from the book. And if you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me bring more thoughtful content like this to you. Thanks for watching and take care of yourself.